Hi again. It is week 8, day number 2. We are looking at our language arts block. So you should have your DOL finished for the week. Check. And you're probably right here where you're going to start watching videos. So the first thing we're going to do is let's look at our vocabulary study for the week. So if you turn your page, and it says to match up, and then first of all, name, number, date. Please write that on your paper right now. I'm going to write mine. So Mr. Hall, number 0, and then you can write the date. And then the next thing we do is we're matching up. So it says a synonym is a word that has the same or almost the same meaning as another word. Match up the synonyms. So remember, sometimes for synonym, people think cinnamon, and of course that's not right. But for synonyms, we're talking about words that are similar, that mean the same thing. So when we talk about a hypothesis, so an hypothesis is like an idea. And it's like, what do you think is going to happen? So is that the same thing as a hypothesis, the same thing as an experiment, as a theory, or as a procedure? Well, I know experiments are like when you're trying to do something, you're trying to figure something out. And a procedure is like how you do something. So a theory and hypothesis, those go together. Theory is like an idea, and hypothesis is like an idea. So your trials, so if you're trying something out to see if it's going to work or not, or is that your procedure? Is that how we do something? Or is that experimenting? Yeah, it's experimenting, right? So we'll just do that here. And so method and procedure. The method is how you do something, and procedure is like how you do something. Cool. So now you are going to fill in the blanks. So let's see. So we have observation, conclusion, permission. An observation is like when you're looking at something, and a conclusion is like the answer, like what do you, based on this, I think this is what's going to happen, like the results. And the permission is like you have to ask, like, you have a permission slip, right? So Jordan asked his teacher for blank to use the restroom. Well, it wouldn't be observation to use the restroom, right? We don't want to look, oh, no, terrible. And conclusion, does that work? No, it's permission. He's going to ask his teacher for permission, or she's going to ask they're going to ask the teacher for permission. So we're going to put permission here. Okay. During Bonnie's blank of the squirrels, they collected 8 acorns. So if she notices that they collect 8 acorns, what is she doing? Is she conclusion or observation? Yeah, it's an observation, exactly. Sarah would not speak to Jill, so Jill came to the blank that Sarah was mad at her. She came to that conclusion. Cool, yeah, so conclusion is like, that's like based on this, because she wasn't talking to her. Jill knew Sarah had a problem. Cool. So now you're going to make 3 sentences with these vocabulary words. So 1, 2, 3. Now notice they're giving you 2 lines here. Do they want little baby sentences like permission? I need permission. No, I don't want just like 3 words in there. Come on, stretch those bad boys out, right? So Mr. Hall asked his students to bring in a signed permission slip to go on the field trip. What? That'd be awesome. Okay, you can't use that one because I just gave it to you, but you guys will do the rest on your own. And then the bottom slip here. When you are done with this, with vocabulary study, so you're going to do that part, the rest on your own. We're going to read chapter 7. So pause, and then we'll read chapter 7. If you want to read it on your own, you're welcome to bounce on that if you'd like to. No problem. Oh, and understanding the story. Oops, hold on a second. Before we read chapter 7, I just remembered we have to do the understanding the story. So let's go back. So understanding the story, we're going to recap chapters 5 and 6. So it says the science fair rule said Jake must use the blank in his project: the water cycle, the periodic table, scientific method, or the food chain. Do you remember what it was called? That order was not the water cycle. And it's not a food chain. Yeah, it's a scientific method. That's right. Now, in chapter 6, Jake makes a list of all the things that he finds. Where did he find all these things? Did he find them under his bed, in his junk drawer, in a closet, or his playroom? Yeah, he found them in his junk drawer. Cool. So now on these answers, these are short answers, but look, they're giving you 3 lines here. So they're looking for a detailed answer. They don't want just, a couple of words. Why is Jake worried after he shows his father the science fair booklet? So you could say Jake was worried his father might try to take over his science fair project after he showed him the science fair booklet. Or after Jake showed his father the science fair booklet, he was worried his dad would try to take over because he's a know-it-all, do-it-all. Something like that. and then you will do the rest on your own. On the long answer, remember, look, this part is so important. In chapter 6, what idea does Jake have for a science fair topic? Explain how he thought of this idea. So they want you, so in your answer here, you're going to explain how he came up with the idea for his science fair project. And then the last one, you'll do your own. Cool. All right, so once you're done with this, then now we'll read chapter 7 of Jake Drake Know-It-All. So you can pause it, and then we'll go off. Cool. All right, so chapter 7, Secrets and Spies. I learned a lot during that week before Christmas vacation. I learned about the science fair and the grand prize. I learned that Mr. Lenny Cordo did not work for the circus. I learned that I wanted to win that Blantium 12 computer. I learned that sometimes my dad can be a KIA/DIA. I learned about the scientific method. And I learned that just because you're in 3rd grade, it doesn't mean you can't read some long words. That's the truth, isn't it? Like electromagnets. That's a fancy name for the kind of magnets you make with wire and iron and electricity. That's something else I learned, because the rest of that week before Christmas, I read all I could about magnets. And another thing I learned is that a know-it-all can't really be a know-it-all. Nobody can know everything. There's too much. If you did know everything, your head would explode or something. But I guess nobody ever told that to Kevin and Marcia. They really wanted to know everything all the time. But there was something they didn't know, and they knew they didn't know it. They didn't know what my science fair project was. At first, Kevin tried to pretend he didn't care. The day before vacation, we had to turn in our permission slips. Miss Snaven told us to bring them to her desk. I stood up, and Kevin got in line behind me. I could tell he did that on purpose, because that way he could see, when he puts the permission slip down, he'll know what he wants to do. Kevin tapped me on the shoulder. When I turned around, he gave me this fake smile and said, "So Jake, what are you doing your project on?" I said, "I don't think I want to tell anybody." He said, "Why? It doesn't matter if people know. I'm doing mine on ants." Kevin stared at me with his pale blue eyes. He didn't even blink. He was waiting for me to tell, especially since he had just told me what his project was. But I just smiled and nodded and said, "Ants. Yeah, ants are cool." And then I turned away because I had to hand my slip to Mrs. Snaven. Kevin followed me back to my table. "So, what's your project, Jake?" I said, "I'm still kind of thinking about it." Kevin said, "So, what is it? What are you thinking about?" I said, "I'll show you at the science fair." Kevin pressed his lips together and made a mad face. Then he walked back to his own table. You see, I'm a good secret keeper. 2 years ago, Abby broke a little china statue my mom had on the shelf. Mom loved it because she said it looked like Abby. That's why Abby loved it too. One day, Abby pushed a chair over to the shelf and she took it down. When she started playing with it, the head broke off. Abby brought it to me. She was crying. She was afraid she would get in big trouble. I used some white glue and put the head back on. I was very careful. You couldn't even tell it was broken. I put it back on the shelf, and I promised I would keep it a secret. And I did. Of course, about a week later, Abby told Mom about the statue herself. And Mom wasn't even mad. Even so, I kept the secret. And then there was a time a friend of mine was at YMCA camp with me. In the middle of the night, he woke me up. He whispered, "Jake, I wet my bed. What should I do?" That's the kind of thing a kid can get a bad nickname for. So I helped him get the sheet off his bunk. It was a plastic mattress, so that was good. I got my extra sheet out of my trunk and we put it on the mattress. Then we stuck the wet sheet under his bed and went back to sleep. No one ever found out, and I never told. I don't even try to guess And don't even try to guess which friend it was, because I'm not telling. Ever. It's a secret. So I decided my science fair project was going to be a secret too. Why tell anybody? Especially Kevin Young. Hey, his last name is Young. That's good to know. And Marcia? She never asked. She just snooped. And she was lousy at it. It was like she had a radar. Wait, try it again. It was like I had radar. I could always tell when Marcia was trying to spy on me. So I let her see me work, and I let Kevin see me too. It was during our library period on the last day before vacation. I let Marcia see me check out a book on snakes. Then I let Kevin see me looking at stuff about sharks in the encyclopedia. And then I used Encarta to look up an article about weasels, and I left the computer screen a long time. I even took some notes, and Marcia saw me. And 10 minutes later, when Kevin was waiting at the printer, I printed out an article about rodents with a big picture of a rat. Then when I went to get it, Kevin handed it to me with a smile. I smiled back. Near the end of library time, I saw Kevin and Marcia whispering together. They looked like they were arguing, probably because Kevin probably thought my project was about rats and sharks, and Marcia probably thought I was studying snakes and weasels. They didn't get my joke. What I did was study them, and I had discovered that Kevin reminded me of a cross between a shark and a rat, and Marcia was like a snake and a weasel. What they didn't know was that the bottom of my backpack, down in a safe, dark place, I had 3 great books, all about magnets you can make, and winning science fair projects. And those 3 books were enough to help me win my new computer. Because the best thing I learned that week was before vacation was this: to be a good know-it-all, you don't have to know what everybody else is doing. And you don't need to know everything. You just have to know enough. Plus, it helps if you have a big drawer full of junk. Chapter 8. All right, cool. Awesome sauce. Okay, so we just finished chapter 7, so it's time for a break. Take a break, and I'll see you in a few for math.